Hey, welcome back to the Big Red Zone. We're very excited for today's show. Remember, new episodes come out every Thursday. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the like button on this video as well as all our other videos. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Big Red Zone. And as always, tell a friend. This week, we'll break down the Celtics kind of struggling a little bit. Tough loss against Cavs. We'll talk about that game. Red Sox undefeated, a little surprised, but we'll talk about a little bit about this week in spring training. NFL franchise tag deadline was the other day, so we'll talk about that and some of the other moves that have happened around the NFL. Battlehawks got a tough loss, so we'll talk about that one too. All that and more on this week's episode of the Big Red Zone. Welcome to the podcast with the Big Red Zone. I'm your host, Big Red. I'm trying solo again. Hopefully we get City football back and possibly maybe a surprise guest in the next couple weeks. But first, before we get into it, I just want to give a special shout out again. I talked about the boys basketball team that I coached last week. Lost a tough one a couple nights ago. Partially why this is late. Sorry again to listeners, but busy week with basketball going on. But sadly, we lost. Tough game. But overall, very proud of the guys and especially the seniors that I got to work with over the last few years. It's a special group, and it was sad to see them see it end. But it was a fun year, and I wish them luck and look forward to next year with the underclassmen. Also looking forward to tennis, starting tennis in a couple weeks, a week from Monday. So have some tennis updates for you guys too. But without further ado, let's get into our first segment. We'll talk about the Celtics. Now, the Celtics, the last week, I'm not too worried about them, and I don't think I'm really nervous about them. I would say I'm starting to get a little nervous. I don't think it's ready to hit the panic button, but they've lost how many in a row? They've lost. Well, they won the other night against the Trailblazers, which was huge. But before that, they lost 3 games in a row, close ones too, against the Nets, Knicks, and Cavs. Obviously, the Cavs one was brutal. 2 of the games, the Knicks and the Cavs one, went to overtime. Cavs one was absolutely terrible. I mean, Grant Williams has 2 free throws, tie game, .8 on the clock. Says I'm going to make both and doesn't hit any. That's like embarrassing. That cannot happen. Um, that Cavs one, they were without Jason Tatum. But even so, they should still win that game when all is said and done. They were without Jason Tatum and Al Horford. But um, yeah, it's been a tough slide. I mean, now they're back from the 1 seed, 2.5 games from the Bucks. The Bucks are just rolling. Um, they're 9-1 in their last 10. Celtics are 5-5. They're kind of slipping. A lot of that is to do, I think, with guys sitting out, and maybe that's load management, but or dealing with injuries now rather than later. But I mean, eventually, I think they got to start winning these games and make sure you got that home court advantage, especially when you get to a game like if you have to play the Bucks. I don't really want the home court advantage with Milwaukee. I want to have home court advantage because that's going to be a tough game. Um, I assume we'll see Milwaukee if we do at all in the Eastern Conference Finals. But at the same time, like I don't want to have them have the advantage, the home court advantage. I'd also like not that I'm scared of them. I wouldn't really want to play the 76ers in like the semis. I think they're the best team next to the Bucks and Celtics in the East. I mean, they're in third, but um, that I think there's a lot more better matchups you can get being the 2 seed. So terrible little skid here of games. Obviously going 500 in the last 10, but the good news is they got some games that should be gimmies. I mean, if you look at the next week or so, they got like Hawks tomorrow night, Saturday. They got the Rockets. They got the Timberwolves. They got the Trailblazers again. Those are 4 games they should be really winnable games. And the Jazz, the Jazz aren't the Jazz at the beginning of the season. I mean, they've fallen to the 11 seed. They've lost. They're 4-6 in the last 10. So that should be a good one before you get to the Kings, who have been the surprise for some of the year. I mean, they're 6.5 out of the first seed. They're in the second seed, tied with the Grizzlies, which the Grizzlies are a mess right now with all the Ja Morant stuff. So I think the Kings are going to kind of hold on to that 2 seed, especially the Grizzlies are struggling. Have that mess going with Ja Morant. The Suns just lost KD probably for the rest of the regular season. The Clippers are kind of they're finding their way adding Russell Westbrook. I wouldn't say they're out of it, but they're like that team that I don't think they're going to climb. I think maybe they'll climb a spot or two, maybe a spot, but they're not going to climb up to the top 3 or top 2 seeds. Warriors obviously will probably climb a little bit, but they're kind of struggling of late. They've lost like what is it? They've lost 3 in a row, something like that. But in their last 10, they're 5-5, and they've lost a few more after that. Timberwolves, they're going to probably stay. Everyone's probably going to stay where they are, maybe climb up a spot. So the Kings are going to be that 2 seed, which is very surprising and I'm very happy for the Kings. It's a nice story. But they'll play the Kings and the Pacers. They got a couple games between the Pacers, Spurs, and Wizards, which should be wins. And they got a tough one against the Bucks. That's going to be a tough one. Statement game going into the playoffs, and they got some hard and easy ones to finish the season. But if we're gonna make up ground and try to catch the Bucks, 2.5 it's getting a little far for just under a month left of the regular season. They're gonna catch them. They got to do it in this next 5-game stretch where they get the Hawks, Rockets, Timberwolves, Blazers, and Jazz. That's got to be where they make their money. If I'm looking at the next 10 games, which is those 5 that I mentioned, and then plus the Kings, Pacers, Spurs, Wizards, Bucks, you have to go at least 8-2. I would like to see them go 9-1. If you want to make a push for this playoffs, you got to go 8-2, 9-1. That's it. It's the only way. The only 2 games that are tough, really tough in that stretch, are the Kings and the Bucks. That's the only 2. So the Kings, I think you got them. It's a little tough. You're playing there. It's a 10 o'clock game, late game. It's the final game of the West Coast trip. So a little travel may be tough, but you know what? It's like that's the one they should be gearing up for, and they got some cupcakes in that 10-game stretch too, so they got to take care of business. So 9-1, 8-2 should be the goal there. And Grant Williams better never talk any trash before shooting a free throw ever again. So again, not nervous, but I'm starting to get a little nervous, but not nervous yet. They'll be fine. Red Sox are still undefeated for the preseason, which I think I can all agree we all saw coming. They just beat up on the Yankees last game, which was yesterday, 11-7. They really didn't have anyone in there. They had a big 6th inning. The guy that's kind of surprised me from the starters, because they didn't really have any starters from the field anyway. But the guy that's kind of surprising me this season is Reese McGuire. Reese is kind of taken on that role, especially with the injury of Connor Wong. Connor Wong's been out. He's kind of taken over that catching role, and he's been doing pretty well. He got 2 hits. Excuse me. He has 2 hits in that last game and scored twice. But he's been pretty solid at the plate, getting on base for the Sox in spring training. So again, it's still early. They really don't have anyone playing both sides. It's they got people out for the World Baseball Classic. They got people just out because it's spring training and it's early. I mean, we still got another a couple weeks, probably like another 2 or 3 weeks of spring training. The first day of the regular season is March 30th against the Orioles. That's opening day. So, I mean, that's still like 3 weeks away, 20 days, so 2 to 3 weeks away. 3 weeks from yesterday. So, but you gotta at least take the good with this. So the team, you can't just all be negative and say like, oh, it's just spring training. I mean, gotta be a little positive here. Some things I'm nervous about, like Justin Turner, scary moment, gets hit in the face. Seems like he's gonna be okay. Have him in time for opening day, but he's probably done for spring training, which is what it is. I don't think he was doing really well before that, so I'm not too worried. But hopefully, we get him some time to get ramped up for opening day because I think if the Sox want any chance of success this year, and I'm not talking World Series, I'm talking just being a successful ball club, they need someone like Turner to be an everyday guy or be a guy that they can move around the field. Carter Wong's been out, but he's getting back to it. He's resumed hitting. James Paxton was dealing with an injury, but he was thrown off the mound. Garrett Whitlock and Bello are the two big ones, but they're starting to throw live BP and kind of get back into it. I mean, Bello's been out since the beginning, I believe. I think he might have had a couple stints here and there, but really he's been out since the beginning of spring training with that forearm tightness. But we need the big ones are we need Whitlock and Bello ready to go because those are two key guys going into into the season. James Paxton is big too, but like you're depending on Bello to be that everyday starting pitcher, and you need Whitlock to be nails either starting or out of the pen. So big ones there. So it's pretty much I would say it's too early. It's too early. You got some injuries that you're dealing with. But overall, I feel pretty good about what the Red Sox are doing. It's like they have no expectations. There's nothing to lose. They're coming out here and beating all these teams just by grit and, taking it seriously. I feel like some teams don't really take spring training seriously. But I gotta be honest. I'm pretty excited and pretty happy with what the Red Sox have been able to do. So carry on. Will this continue into the regular season? Probably not to this extent, but hey, you gotta be positive about this stuff. I'm excited to see what the Red Sox do, and that could change pretty quickly into April. But you know what? At least if they can be fun to watch, at least that's all that matters. Because no one's expecting this team to do anything. They can be fun and be like the Red Sox of 2021. That was at least enjoyable. They made a little run. They almost messed around and made it to the World Series. They were, a ball boy stool away from making it to the World Series or having a good chance to. And I'm excited to see what this team does. I'm excited, and that, as I said, that may change, but I'm looking forward to what they have to do to close out the spring and get ready for the season. All right, the NFL. It's been a few weeks. It's like this is like usually Danny Football and I's favorite thing to talk about is football and talk about the NFL. We haven't had much to talk about, obviously, for the last few weeks, but this week franchise tag deadline happened the other day. We had a few franchise tags. The big one, obviously, being Lamar Jackson. He got tagged for 32.4 mil for the year. A lot of talks about him getting traded. Who wants him? But now all these teams are kind of out on him because the big thing is he wants his whole 30-something million guaranteed. What's the whole deal guaranteed? That's not going to happen. People were like saying, "Why is Daniel Jones getting signed and not Lamar?" And it's like Daniel Jones took what he could get. I mean, he got a great deal, got a lot of money, but he didn't get the whole thing guaranteed. I think if Lamar Jackson got $20 million guaranteed, like 32, like say it was a $30 million contract and 20 of it was guaranteed, I think a bunch of 20, even 22, 23 would guaranteed. I think people would take it. But no one's going to take that full contract guaranteed, especially coming off the seasons that Lamar's had. He's been great, but he's been injured. He's gotten hurt the last few years, coming off an injury from last year. The Ravens haven't been doing well. and partially because he's been hurt, but when you look at it, he's the starting quarterback. He's gonna kind of step it up. So I'm not surprised. I'm glad the Patriots not on him. I'd rather take my chances with Mac, paying him the rookie deal that he's getting paid, and let's ride it out with him. But I think he'll be the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens next year, and then we'll do this whole thing over again next year, or maybe at the trade deadline will he be traded, blah blah blah. But I don't see anyone unless they're very, very desperate. No one's going to do it before the draft to see how the draft shakes out and free agency shakes out. But I don't see Lamar leaving. To be honest with you, I see him being in Baltimore at least for next year, unless the perfect deal comes up. I mean, if like a team, I'm trying to think of like a team like Green Bay wants to take a chance on him and trade Aaron Rodgers away to Baltimore, but he wouldn't want to go to Baltimore. So I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough thing to find figure out. Saquon Barkley got tagged by the Giants, 10.09 mil. No surprise there. Franchise running back who came off a great year last year, trying to build right there. Pollard gets franchise tag 10.09, same thing. By the Cowboys, he's dealing with that broken leg that he suffered in the last game of the playoffs. But they can't risk losing him. He's such a great piece, and especially with Zeke kind of like on the fence. He's getting older, getting some, you know, he's getting older, and they need that guy because Pollard actually I think outplayed Zeke last year. So very good pickup for them. Josh Jacobs gets tagged for the Raiders. I think that's a great move for them. I think there's 100% chance he was leaving Vegas, so they hold on to him. They're still a quarterback shy of doing anything, so they need to figure out their quarterback situation. The carousel did get started, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, but they need to start finding that quarterback. Maybe that's I don't know if they get the draft capital. I mean, they haven't hit on any draft picks anyway, so maybe if they do trade them some first round picks or whatever for Lamar, maybe he fits in there. But I don't know. It would be cool to see him in Vegas, but that's a great tag by the Raiders. Evan Ingram, which is a little shocking, but I'm not surprised after thinking about it. He gets tagged by the Jags. It's a great piece, great weapon for Trevor Lawrence. Don't really want to lose him there. He gets 11.34. And I can't say I'm too shocked after thinking about it. They want to continue to build. They activated Calvin Ridley. He's off his suspension. So now you're going into the season with Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, and you got ETN in there. That's a solid offense to go with Trevor Lawrence. So I think as I said at the end of the season when the Jags lost, I think the Jags are going to be in it for the next like 5 to 10 years because as long as they hold on to their franchise quarterback and they keep building around them with those young pieces. The thing about them is all the pieces are young. Like Trevor Lawrence is young, ETN's young, Ingram's young-ish. Calvin Ridley's young. Christian Kirk, I believe, is young. So they got a young offensive core, and they can ride for a while. I'm not saying they're going to be Super Bowl contenders next year, but they could depending on what the pieces they add around them. So great move for the Jags. And then they Commanders tagged Darren Payne. Great defensive player. They don't want to lose him. People probably don't want to stick around the Commanders, so they tagged him for 18.93. Commanders are kind of in rough shape. They don't know what they're doing at quarterback. They just keep losing games. They don't really have a good offense. Don't really have that great of a defense. They get great players on both sides of the ball, but they kind of need to figure out what they're doing because that's kind of a mess over there. The Pats bring back James Vertans, a guard. I wrote it down. Not a flashy move, but I think it's a great signing. He's a great lineman. I think he did a lot of good things on the line. He's young. He adds depth, which we need. We need to start beefing up this O-line. So not flashy, but I think that's a good move. I don't hate that move. Um, the big one was Derek Carr to the Saints. That was a big news. I think he's going to do pretty well there, and that's maybe me being a Derek Carr fan. Um, but I think he's going to do pretty well there. I think there is a little bit of a mess there with Alvin Kamara, but they could easily go draft a running back. They could draft Bijan. To be honest with you, they could go out and draft Bijan and say, all right, you know what? No matter what happens, Alvin Kamara's out. Who cares? We got our running back of the future, and maybe we'll trade Alvin Kamara and get, ride with Bijan. Um, they got Chris Olave, who's, I think, I know everyone's going to say that Garrett Wilson is the best wide receiver in that draft class. And fair enough. He had a great year with the Jets, with Zach Wilson, Mike White, all those guys throwing to him, Joe Flacco. Fair enough. I think Chris Olave is equal to, if not better. If I had to pick a wide receiver from that draft class, I think I'm going Chris Olave. I think he's just so good. So give that to Derek Carr. That's a great weapon. They get the running back game. If they can get the running core, go get a running back, or have Alvin Kamara for at least half the season. That's another guy. See if they can kick the tires on Michael Thomas. See what they got from there, and then I can see them adding a piece for Derek Carr, or someone wanting to come play with Derek Carr. He's a I think, as much as media wants to spin him or people want to hate on him, I think he's a very well respected quarterback. I mean, Devontae Adams wanted to come play with him, and they didn't. And Devontae Adams didn't want to see him go last year. He wanted to leave once Derek Carr was released. So I think the Saints will be. I'm going to say it right now. I think the Saints win the division. I think the division is up for grabs, and I think the Saints, with that move, just moved into the favorites of the division. So we'll have to see there. The other big one is Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers at first was rumored to make 15 to 20 million. That was a year. That was going to be the offer. If that was it, as much as I want Jacoby Myers, I don't think I'm willing to pay him 15 to 20 million dollars. I'd rather save that money and go find another receiver. Go find, I don't know who it would be, but go pay that money to other receivers, or two receivers that are equal to, if not better. I just can't see paying $20 million for Jacoby Myers. Now, report came out the other day that the market may actually be 12 to 14. I think I'd do it. If it's 12 to 14, I know it's a little high. Maybe that's a homer in me saying it, but I think I'd take Jacoby Myers for that much money. Looking at the market, who's available, looking he's as experienced with the system, how he fits, he has rapport with Mac. I think I spend that money. I think I do it. And then you can add another receiver to go along with him. Big news that just broke today. It wasn't that surprising, but I think it was necessary for them, but it's a tough loss for them. I think is Adam Thielen gets cut today. Obvious cap space saver, because it has a lot of big cap hit, but I think he's still got some juice. I know he had a down year, but he's older. He's a little slower, but it can't be. He also had Justin Jefferson eating up targets, and they also got Hawkinson in there that ate up a bunch of targets. I think he's still got some juice in those legs. So I wouldn't be surprised if a team gives him a shot. Could him and Bill make up, and he comes to the Patriots? I don't know. I think there's other guys ahead of him that I would like. Yeah, I had mentioned Jerry Jeudy, which I don't think will happen. I obviously T. Higgins, obviously, if they can put aside their differences on the other side, DeAndre Hopkins. But I wouldn't, if things go south and you don't get any of those guys and you sign Adam Thielen and you're rolling into camp with a drafted wide receiver, they get the kid from Ohio State maybe, or Zay Flowers, Jacoby Myers, if they bring him back, Bourne, they throw Adam Thielen in there. you're starting to build up a nice, and geez, I forgot about Devontae Parker. You have Devontae Parker. I think you're starting to build up some nice weapons for Mac. Not the flashy ones that we were talking about with T. Higgins or DeAndre Hawkins, but I think they got some nice pieces in there to build around. So we'll have to see what happens with free agency. The free agency like kickoff usually I think is the 15th, I believe. So next this upcoming week. So I'm sure we're gonna have some big signings. Yeah, next Wednesday is when it's gonna kick off. Maybe I'll look at that next week. A lot of free agents. It's gonna go all over the place, so it'd be interesting to see where everyone goes. All right, so we're looking at XFL. My Battlehawks lost the other night. To the undefeated DC Defenders. They're now in first. They lost 34-28. I thought it was a really good game. You know, DC took the early lead. Battlehawks came back and they went ahead and shut out the DC Defenders in the second quarter. DC comes back, gets the lead, and it's a very back and forth game. 34-28, obviously. I said it last week. I mean, the DC Defenders get it done with their defense and with their running game, and the Battlehawks kind of held their running game in check. They gave up 136 yards and a touchdown on the ground. I mean, it was all over the place. It wasn't just one guy for the Defenders. A couple guys at 50 yards, 22, and 9. 2 of which were their quarterback. So 31 of the yards of the 36 were from quarterbacks, including the touchdown as well. Both quarterbacks did pretty well. 2 passing touchdowns for the quarterbacks and over 200 yards between the 2 of them. That's kind of surprising. I said last week they don't really have a passing game. They did pretty well in this game. When the Battlehawks defense wasn't that overpowering, which I thought was going to be their bread and butter defensively. Battlehawks offensively looked really good. I mean, they scored 28 points. One of them is a pick six, so not from the offense, but AJ McCarron throws 4 touchdowns. He did throw 2 picks, which was not good. But 4 touchdowns, really good. And the thing that was the difference in the game, I think, is they didn't have a running game. They had 56 yards on the ground total, no touchdowns. Part of that might have been because they were down for most of the game. They always would score, but then they'd be down right away, so they had to try to come back. Hakeem Butler had a big day, 9 receptions, 105 yards and a touchdown. So big day from him. AJ McCarron, I think, is one of my favorite players in the league. Favorite stories, like it was like PJ Walker was my favorite story of that other one. I like AJ McCarron. I'm a big Battlehawks guy, and B, it's nice to see a guy that was in the NFL as a backup and now he's starting to thrive. You know what I mean? So Battlehawks will be back. Not too worried. 2-1. They fall obviously to the 2 seed in the North. 2-1, a game behind. The Dragons and the Vipers are just bad teams, so I think they'll be okay. The Dragons are 1-2, game behind them. Obviously, they got their first win last week. The Vipers still haven't got a win yet. Battlehawks are going home this week against the Renegades. Another 2-1 team, but 2 wins came at home. They're going on the road to face the Battlehawks in St. Louis. It's a tough place to play. First home game of the season. I expect the Battlehawks to win that game and go to 3-1. Let's see who the Defenders are playing. The Defenders are gonna go play the Vipers. Oh, jeepers. They'll play the Vipers, so that will probably be another win. But if they can keep that game behind, stay that one game behind, they play the Battlehawks will play them again at home on March 18th. So, done but not out. We're coming up to the halfway point in the year. Another 2 weeks, and we're halfway through the season. So, Battlehawks got to start ramping up and going to the halfway point on the right note. So let's move on to our final segment of the night, the People's Topic.
It's the People's Topic, baby! People's Topic.
So for People's Topic, you write on Instagram and Twitter page at Baker Zone. Leave us a comment, let us know what you want us to talk about. This one comes from Cameron. Gossip around Billy O'Brien interviewing for the OC job in November last year. Did Patricia know about it? I've heard some people, I heard this yesterday. The rumor was Billy O interviewed and got hired, last November during the season. I don't buy that. I really don't, for many reasons. One, that's Belichick and Saban. First of all, it's Saban. So Belichick, he respects him. I don't see that happening. They also both have had big problems with coaches poaching coaches on the off season, never mind during the season. I don't see that happening. We would have heard about it. I think it would have been more news. And it depends on who you ask, because I heard on the radio yesterday from one of the insiders. He said his sources told him Billy O was in the dark until the offseason, like right before he was hired, that what the Patriots' plan was. He didn't know if he was going to get hired or not. But I guess it depends on who you talk to. I don't buy it. If you buy it, great. But I honestly don't see Bill doing that during the season. Bill's a very much a guy that thinks about when the season's going on. He's worried about what's going on for the season. So I don't buy it. But if he did, that's pretty bad. And I don't know. His other question was did Matt Patricia know about it? If he was doing it, probably. I mean, word gets around there fast. They work together. So I don't think so, though. I don't buy that. This one comes from Darren. He says, pitch clock. The rules have been interesting in baseball. I don't necessarily like them. I think they're changing the game too much. I'm a big fan of the Savannah Bananas and Banana Ball, which I think should become a no. I think I'm gonna say it will, but I hope it becomes its own sport in the next, like, Banana Ball should be its own thing on TV. Like, that's entertaining, and I think it may run the league out of business. Not out of business, but I think it's going to drive away from its popularity. But you're trying to make it too different. You're trying to make baseball too different. Just have this other thing, and it will be great. Everyone will watch it. It will be great. Have a banana ball league, professional banana ball league. Try it out. I think it will be successful. But all these changes, like you can't pick off more than 3 times, or it's a balk in regular baseball. I don't necessarily love this. You know what I mean? I don't love it. I love it as a fan of bananas and watching the banana ball or minor leagues and stuff like that. You want to do that, but with MLB, not necessarily the biggest fan of it. But I'll still watch it. I'm still going to come to games and watch the game. So who knows? This one comes from Eric. I messed up and didn't read this one last week. He wrote in later. He goes, "Will the Bruins make it deep in the playoffs?" I think they're a wagon. I think they're going to keep winning. We need to talk more Bruins on this podcast because they're doing so well. Maybe next week we'll do a little Bruins segment, but I know Danny Football loves the Bruins, so I'll try to get him back on and we can talk about that. But unbelievable season by the Bruins. They're going to break every record. And I think they're just too much of a juggernaut. I really think it's going to translate. I think it's going to be like, the '07 Sox, where they were just a wagon from the start to finish, or the 2018 Red Sox. They were just a wagon from beginning to end. And I think that's how it's going to be. I think it's going to be a Stanley Cup or bust. We talked about it before. It's like they're running out of years in that window for those old guys. This is like one of the last chances they got. I think coach has done a great job. We brought in some great players. There's been some great trades. Uh, the one thing on Sweeney that we've said he can't draft, and he's trading away draft picks to get impact players. So you know what? Who cares? I like what they're doing. So I think this is the Bruins' year. Paige writes in. She says, "Oh, day version. I am recording this during the day because I felt bad we didn't get it out last night, so I'm trying to get this out today." So she said, "Want to hang out? I'm off today." Paige, I wish I could. I'm going to respond to this. I wish I could, but I got work in a few hours. So I am sorry about that. I'm responding right now on air. So I wish I could, Paige. I really do. We got to play some tennis when the Nets come up. I got to get back into the groove, and I will give you a chance because I'm a little rusty. As always, this one comes from Joseph_Celia. Who is the most overrated player in the NBA right now? Huh. I don't know if he's overrated, but he's getting overhyped a little bit. But this guy Dylan Brooks, like I'm not a big fan of the Grizzlies. Um, I think they talk way too much for a team that hasn't won anything. Um, I don't know if he's necessarily um, overrated, but people look at him as like a contending piece. Like he hasn't really done anything to warrant that. I don't know. I'm not a big not Dylan Brooks guy. If you're looking for a big name, I don't know. I think Dylan Brooks is overrated. I think Rudy Gobert preseason was overrated, but I think he's come down to earth. I think he's just getting older, and um, I don't think. I mean, he was good a few years ago, but I don't think. I think people are kind of off the train of Rudy Gobert. I think this may be a hot take. I think Anthony Davis is way overrated. Like he's not doing anything. He totally came to LA and just laid an egg. He just gets hurt all the time, and which I loved Anthony Davis in New Orleans, but I feel like he's done nothing. I really do. Like I feel like he's done nothing. I feel like Ben Simmons is too easy. I think he's overrated, but I think he's people are starting to see that. But first name that came to mind was Dylan Brooks because like I heard someone saying he's a key impact player to help the Grizzlies go on, and I think he does a lot more talking than he actually plays. So, um, but thank you for writing into our people's topic. Remember, you can write on our Instagram and Twitter page at Big Red Zone. Leave us a comment, give us a follow. Um, you can also find us on TikTok at Big Red Zone. Give us a follow there. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you know when our episodes come out. And as always, please tell a friend. Thank you for listening and have a great weekend.